First, let me know y'all thoughts on today's new episode down below. What did y'all think? Did y'all like it? Um, Let me see. Not too much happened on today's episode. Look like all the good stuff happened next week, y'all. Looks like all the good stuff happens on next week's new episodes of The Bold and Beautiful. But yeah, I'm gonna give y'all a quick summary right fast. Eric ends up seeing that Nick had a ring and he teleported to Brooke's room looking for Ridge. And I said he ran, didn't he? Nick ends up making plans to meet up with Brooke. Brooke ended up having flashbacks of her and Ridge, and I said the show be 10 minutes of ads, 7 minutes of flashbacks, and 1 minute of actual show, y'all. But aside from that, let me see where I stopped. Eric ends up telling Ridge that time is ticking. Basically, he finna lose Brooke. Excuse me. Fan ends up questioning Grace the good it did though. She's talking about so she busy. She know he asks questions and stuff like that, but she busy right now. But based on next week's preview, he's supposed to find out everything and have her tell Leon what's really going on, or what really happened or whatever. Excuse me, Lord have mercy. Katie ends up asking her man in Italy with her sister. And I said, girl, they think you something to play with. I said, they think you something to play with, girl. And lastly, Eric was trying to run interference between Brooke and Nick. She said she needed to clear her head. He's talking about, so can I come with you? He's talking about, so can I come with you? But yo, we finna dive into this review. Hold on. Okay, so on today's new episode, they showed Nick at the beginning of the episode. If I'm not mistaken, they showed him first. And he was having flashbacks of him and Brooke. And I said, now this is a flashback I want to see because I wasn't, watching around that time. I don't even know if I was alive around that time, to be honest. But yeah, they showed flashback of Nick with Brooke and stuff like that back in the day. Brooke, they showed her. I'm like, I was thinking that they were finna do flashbacks with her and Nick. No, no. 2 times in the episode, she over here thinking about what's his name, Ridge. I thought for sure when they showed her, I was like, they finna do a flashback. I'm like, okay, they gonna do a flashback where she thinking about Nick. No, about Ridge twice. But yeah, Brooke was thinking about Ridge and what she told him, the conversation they just had. I said, now if they just had it on yesterday's episode, why do they need to replay it? Why do we need to see that if we just seen it yesterday? Why do we need to see it? But yeah, Eric ends up telling Ridge to stop taking Brooke for granted. Time is ticking. Ridge ends up saying him and Brooke have a kid. Oh, this the part. I forgot to say that in my TikTok video. This man, when Eric was talking to him, he was telling him, stop taking Brooke for granted or whatever. Time is ticking, you gonna lose her. He talking about some, me and her have a kid or whatever. She not going anywhere. I said, okay, keep thinking that. I said, I don't know what make people think that because y'all have kids that folks not gonna move on and get tired of your foolishness or what. But yeah, he's talking about, so we have a kid, we have a child together or whatever. I said, dude, that's not stopping nothing nowadays. What the world? I said, who he think he is? I said, even if y'all didn't have a child, she's still gonna be around waiting though, to be honest. Hold on. I said, we seen this before. She did, matter of fact, since all this been happening, she done said she done. She ends up telling him, have fun with your second choice. Talking about Taylor, she done bumped into him. She done slapped Ridge and still over here begging him. So this ain't nothing. This is not nothing. But look like based on next week's promo or whatever, something's gonna happen with the boat. They show Ridge yelling for Brooke or whatever, and they saying there's supposed to be some type of boat crash or something like that. I don't know, y'all. We'll see. But yeah, let me see where I stop at. I think I stopped at Reed said him and Brooke have a kid together. Brooke not going anywhere. Fan wanted to talk to Grace. Him and Bridget was standing up there talking about everything. They still have questions. They still have concerns. Look, she tried to walk by real fast or whatever. He's like, Dr. Buckingham or whatever. And then she just stood up there and how she acted, she gave away that something's up. She acted how Lee acted on yesterday's episode when Sheila was trying to question her. Hold on. But yeah, Fan was just talking to Bridget saying that he want to talk to her or whatever. When she came, like I said, she tried to walk by real fast or whatever. He called in there and he's like, I've been texting you and calling or whatever. She was like, she been very busy or whatever and still end up leaving. But yeah, let me see. I think Finn was saying they still don't know nothing about Liam's surgery. Something's not adding up. But look like on next week's episode, he finds out that she faked it or something. Because he going to be confronting her, telling her she need to tell Liam. They show her and Finn at Bill's house talking to Liam. Hope standing up there or whatever. And I said, look at you. Look at you. I said, next, after they tell Liam everything, I said, you going to jail. I said, you going to jail. Hold on. Let me see. What else? Eric ends up saying he was trying to excuse me. Excuse me. Eric was still talking to Ridge saying that he overreacted, just explaining the whole CEO position thing and everything. And he's still trying to say he with Taylor. I said, but the way you acting, you would think you wasn't. He over here running after her and everything. He ran after her at the end of today's episode or whatever. He ran, he found her or whatever. I said, you ain't supposed to be in her face. I said, you ain't supposed to be in her face unless it's work related. Hold on. Let me see. I said Eric said Ridge overreacted. Katie ends up stopping by looking for Donna. Taylor was like, she's not here. That's when she started talking to Taylor, asking how she's holding up. I said, they be playing with Taylor at this point. I said, get out her face. She don't need you or your sister telling her that Brooke love Ridge. We all know that. Everybody know that. She know that. That's why she proposed. That's why she proposed. She don't need you to tell her. I said, Taylor, you gonna have to get them in check. Cause ain't no way. They done walked in. Well, it ain't your house, it's Eric's house, but you still live there or whatever. They keep just walking in and just stood up there talking about Brooke and Ridge this. Hold on. But yeah, Taylor just standing up there telling her how, despite what Brooke do in Italy, they still engaged, and hopefully, her could be engaged. So they were just talking about that, talking about the love that Brooke has for Ridge and everything. And Taylor seems so confident. But based on next week's episode, I mean, they didn't show too much, y'all. Once again, they just showed him learning from Eric that Nick had a ring. They show him running or whatever, trying to find her. I think he's supposed to walk up to her, and she's supposed to walk away with Nick. They also show a scene where Brooke just laid at the back of the boat. She laid on the back of the boat or whatever, got her feet off. Well, not up, but down. How you say it? She laid out. We just gonna say that. And he's yelling her name, and they zoom in on, I'm assuming Nick driving the boat. I don't know, y'all. But they saying it's supposed to be a boat crash, allegedly. We'll see. But yeah, he's yelling her name. I think that was the last one that they showed. Let me see what else. Ridge ends up stopping by Brooke room, and I was confused. Look, I know I say that a lot when I'm doing reviews, but I was confused probably because I wasn't paying attention. Ridge went to Brooke room, and he was knocking on the door. She had earphones on or something, because I could have sworn she was just sitting up there listening to him. But when Eric stopped by, he was looking for Ridge, and she was like, she hasn't seen him. So I was like, did she not see him or not hear him or something? But yeah, he don't came after his conversation with Eric. He came to her room and knocked on the door. I don't know what he's trying to tell her, but she didn't answer the door. He ends up leaving. So later in the episode, that's when Eric came. Excuse me, hold on. Let's see. So they show Eric, he was standing out there, and he looks down or whatever, and he sees Nick holding the ring. I said, what he did? He teleported, did he? I said, he hurry up and ran to find them. He was knocking on the door after he seen the ring. Next thing you know, he at the door knocking or whatever. He was like, Brooke and Ridge or whatever, open up or whatever. So she opened the door. She was like, she didn't see Ridge. And he ain't said nothing to her about the ring, though. He was like, you trying to find Ridge? And she was like, I haven't seen him or whatever. And just talking to her. Hold on. I think I skipped the part. I said, Eric sees Nick got a ring. Finn ends up seeing Grace. And I said, yeah, get your tail up in here. I said, get your tail in here. They been looking for you. They been looking for you. Get in here. She don't try to walk past the doggone door and stuff. Trying to hurry up and leave. But yeah, I said, get in here. We got questions. But yeah, Taylor said Nick will always put Brooke first. She needs somebody there to put her first or whatever. Katie ends up mentioning Brooke and Ridge love for each other. I wrote down Eric and he's trying to find Ridge. Eric asked Brooke how she is, and she was just saying, excuse me, hold on. Eric ends up asking Brooke how she is, and he ends up saying, I'm frustrated with Ridge too, or whatever. And he told her not to let Nick take advantage of her, the fact that she's vulnerable or whatever. And I said, dude, I said, every time I look at him, and I know, because I didn't know when I first was watching the show, I didn't know that they had been involved. I didn't know that they had kids. I think I had knew about Rick, but I didn't know about Bridget, right? Ain't them the two kids? Every time I look at him now, like, and he be over here encouraging his son to be with her, whatever. I was like, this is so weird. This is so weird. I know it's a soap opera, but still. But yeah, what else happened? Let me see. Eric asks how Brooke is. I already talked about that part. Let me see. Eric says there's still time for Reese to come around and change his mind. That's when Brooke ends up saying she needs time to clear her head. She want to go for a walk, I'm assuming. He talking about, so let me come with you. I see trying to run interference, trying to interfere. Hold on. She ends up hugging him and saying she going by herself. Finn tells Grace he had questions. They want details, and that's when she continued to say that she's busy. And she walked out. Talking about, so they just got to trust her. Trust you? You over here, even in that moment, you showing reasons why you not trustworthy. Taylor was saying how she would like for people to be happy for her and Ridge being together. And she was like, maybe Brooke will be engaged to Rick. Not Rick. Maybe Brooke will be engaged to Nick by the time, they come back from Italy. they showed Brooke, she's standing up there or whatever, and she's still thinking about Ridge. I was like, let it go, please. I said, another flashback. Golly. But yeah, I said, Brooke said, you know what? If you don't want me, I'll show you who do. And I think the last scene was after she was having the flashbacks of her and Ridge. He walked up to her and everything. And I said, he can't stay out her face. This is not work related. I said, this is not work related. But yeah, that's it. That's all, y'all. Let me know your thoughts on this episode down below. Excuse me. That's it. That's all. Let me know your thoughts on this episode down below. Stay tuned for the next review. Until next time, deuces. Have a great rest of the day and be safe. Wait.